Alfred Adler was a famous psychologist from back in the day who developed his own theories and philosophies and did experiments on several patients and sort of developed his own psychology. And his outlook on life at the time was new, it was different, and it sort of changed the way that we approach psychology today. It's definitely it's definitely changed the way that teams conduct team psychology and sports psychology, and something that once I was introduced to really shaped the way I approached my sport of football, approached my life, and has a lot of principles that I think would be very beneficial if you were able to research on your own, check out, and start to do some your own mental work and reshaping the way that you think about things. So here are 5 basic principles of Adlerian psychology that I want to talk with y'all with today. Okay. So one thing that he talked a lot about was that you define your past. You cannot let your past define you. What does that mean? Well, humans by nature, we assign meaning to everything, and we also buy into narratives. We create narratives because we create stories. We live by stories. Our brain understands stories, and we assign meaning not only to ourselves, but to the world around us. It's how our brain operates and works. And when it comes to your past, you must define your past or else it will define you. And what that means is basically you have to take the power out of the events that happen to you, and you can't allow yourself to become a victim of your past. For example, if you were, I don't know, a small kid, let's say you were smaller and people used to pick on you a lot. You cannot sit there and say, I'm cowardly. My whole life I've been picked on and never did anything about it. Instead, you can reshape your mind to say, because of the events that happened in my past, I will not allow myself to be picked on. I will not allow myself to be abused or mistreated. That's just one example, but there are plenty of other examples. I'm sure this isn't new to you, but it's definitely something that you have to be intentional about shaping, because the mind will create a narrative on its own without your permission. That's the thing. Your mind is already creating this narrative without your permission, and it's shaping the way you think about yourself, which is shaping the way that you act and the way you behave. So it's very important to be intentional about defining the things that happen to you, especially trauma. Everyone's gone through trauma. Everyone's gone through things. I've gone through things. The person you look up to, your role model, has gone through things. And the thing that separates, those that end up overcoming their trauma and those who are weighed down and bogged down by it is what they choose to define. Are they allowing themselves to be defined by their trauma, or are they defining what that trauma means to them? I think that's something very important that you should always look into. Number 2 is people are goal-oriented. This is very important. If you feel lost, or if you just feel like you can't get over a certain hump and you really can't put your finger on it, you most likely don't have a goal. I can tell you back when I was playing ball, for the longest time, I didn't know why I wasn't, quote unquote, getting better. I couldn't figure out why I wasn't progressing and why I wasn't getting to where I wanted to go. Real quickly, I realized I never actually assessed my strengths and my weaknesses so that I could create a goal. What I implore you to do is to really write down, some strengths, some weaknesses, or have someone very close to you do it, either or. Actually have both of you guys do it and see what lines up. And just take a look at your life. What do you want to change? Create a goal. Create a goal and then work towards that goal. It will give you a sense of purpose. You will no longer feel lost, and it will give you a sense of direction. Because we are goal oriented. We need a goal or we'll sort of fall into a complacency. That's just how the human brain works. Once given a goal, it will work towards it. Number 3, inferiority can become motivation. Now, this is something I feel personally can be a dual-edged sword. inferiority can become motivation. And what he meant by that was that there are things that are either about ourselves or in our lives that we don't necessarily like, that we feel are not up to par. And that can serve as motivation to change, which I 100% agree with. While I feel it can become dangerous, is allowing that to become a deep burning insecurity where you start to overcompensate. Now, I don't think that's what he meant at all, but I can see how that can become an issue for certain people, especially, a lot of guys, like I know with the, like guys that get big trucks to compensate for being short, stuff like that. But inferiority can become motivation, or like, those guys who didn't really get girls, so then they become like rich dickheads, but what, employed properly or executed properly, you can assess the things that you want to fix, and it sort of feeds in back to the goal-oriented part. You can use that to set goals and get better. Use that to find things that you can work towards to improve in your life, and it'll give you motivation. You can sort of picture, what would it look like if this was better, or what would it look like if I improved in X, Y, and Z. For example, when it came to me catching the ball, I always talk about catching the ball and getting my feet right. I noticed that, okay, my feet aren't where they need to be for a college running back. All right, bet. So I was able to set a goal of not being able to be touched by the first person ever. And I worked backwards from that goal. Don't just set an empty goal. And when I say an empty goal, is you just set a goal and you just expect it to work out. What you need to do, you need to set a goal and work backwards. What do I need to do to be this? Okay, what would it look like by training this? So I was able to come up with a routine where I'll practice my footwork and I'll practice my hands. Later on, I accomplished both these goals and I got better and I continued to progress. I was not as lost in my journey of developing as a running back. So another thing is that your worth is not determined by comparison. So, they say that self-comparison or comparison is the thief of joy. And that's very true. I believe that wholeheartedly. When you're so focused on what everyone else got going on and what other people have, you forget to appreciate the things that you have. It is very important to stay focused on the little things you have in your life, appreciation. I've made a video about that, and perspective. But also to understand that someone else's success does not diminish yours. Someone else's lifestyle does not take away from yours. And someone else's failures do not boost up your successes. Another person's shortcomings does not boost up your worth. Like, we all have an intrinsic value that comes from God. I believe wholeheartedly in the Bible, in Jesus Christ. I believe that he made us all, we are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of Christ Jesus. So I believe that wholeheartedly. And in Adlerian psychology, he says that not to be too caught up in comparing yourself to others, but understanding that each person has their own life, their own story, their own struggles, their own wins, their own successes, their own blessings, everything. Each person has their own. It's not something to compare, because truth be told, you swap someone else's plate for someone else's plate, you can't handle theirs, they can't handle yours. Each person is gifted what they have. So, and number 5, which I think is the biggest point, if you don't take anything else away from it, is this one you need to take. You need courage to live authentically. A lot of times people shy away and they shrink themselves for the people that they're around. They act smaller in rooms because a lot of times they don't believe they belong in there. And I love the word courage because it challenges you that even if you don't believe that you should be there, even if you don't feel like you're up to par, quote unquote, with someone else, because you are, like, that's not a thing, you always are. Or whether you feel like people don't like you or wouldn't like you if you were this or that, courage says to push past that fear regardless and let it come. Let it come even if it is. Let the hate come, to take the pain that comes with living authentically, because it is a necessary a necessary thing. You know, courage is so important. I say it's more important than confidence, because there will be times when it doesn't feel right, when it doesn't feel friendly, when it doesn't feel safe. Can you do what must be necessary still? And that is truly courage. And it talks about it specifically in the terms of living authentically. So being who you truly are, and that's being able to accept your insecurities, being able to accept the things that you're proud about yourself, being able to share who you are with the world that you live in. That is all part of living authentically. It's not just being crazy and talking reckless. That's not living authentically. But it's presenting who you fully are, and not being vulnerable and open enough to take whatever comes with it. That's the courage to live authentically. So yeah, again, just to recap, you must define your past. The things that happen to you don't define you. You will always define you. Number 2 is that people are goal-oriented. If you feel lost, it's because you haven't set yourself a direction. Inferiority can become motivation. Use your shortcomings to motivate you to be better. Number 4, your worth isn't determined by comparison. You got to love yours. God bless you with everything you need. Number 5, you need courage to live authentically. You must take the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with being here, because at the end of the day, you are blessed. I hope you got something from this video. It was a lot of fun to make this one. I really was interested in it. I want to go into a deeper dive about Adlerian psychology. Might even do a video essay on Alfred Adler himself. And definitely want to explore other different psychologies and philosophies as well on this channel. I hope this video helped you. God bless.